name and is our top scorer.
Yeah, and the thing about Harry too was he's obviously not oblivious to the fact that he's struggling, but he's doing all of the other things. He's not letting it control the rest of his game, and he knows he's not going to be the scorer. It's going to be great when it finally happens. You even sensed a little bit of maybe desperation, or I'm going to take every opportunity I can get type of thing, and it doesn't have to be perfect. When it looked like he tried to cross that one across the face of goal and just try to bounce it off the keeper and get it to go in. But he's doing all the little things. He is hustling back. He is making tackles. He is holding up play a little bit to get other people into position and trying to make a positive pass. So it's commendable that you don't see some of the flaws in other strikers that maybe they're not going to put in a full shift because they just don't feel like they're going to score. And if all they've ever known is I'm a striker and I score goals, the rest of their game is just mediocre at best. But Harry does a lot of things well, so it's good to see that at least the other parts of his game are on par with what we expect as supporters and what Maurizio expects as a manager.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Son, you can't say enough. He's really gotten off to a really good start, and we talked about Chadley's struggles. It'll be interesting to see as we go into City if by then Eriksen is getting the start and how that plays into if we're still a little bit down with our defensive midfield. If we continue with this 4-1-4-1 and see how it works, I'd rather not sit back in a 4-2-3-1 and absorb pressure from City, because that's what you expect to happen if you do that. But if you go out and just attack and just let the game do whatever it is that the game is going to do, listen, City are not Palace and they are not Sunderland. They're not going to sit back and absorb pressure. They're going to attack. So if you take Son and Kane and Eriksen and Lamela and all those guys that are your creative in and out type of, I can see a lot of 2-on-1, 3-on-2 type of breaks happening against the run of play. We've got to be able to finish, though. That just seems to be our Achilles heel.
Yeah,
right now.
And maybe for the City game, and don't want to get ahead of the Arsenal game, but for the City game, maybe Townsend and his speed down the right.
That would help.
He's impressed me recently. I know he didn't get on today, but I thought he was good against Karabag, and when he came on against Sunderland, he was on against Sunderland, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he really kind of got his head down and got some good wing play in there and some crosses, and I think that's what we really need to take to City. Just because I just don't see us with Fernandinho and Yaya Toure in the middle, us cutting in and those two protecting the back four, finding something through the box. I really think we've got to be coming across the box and capitalizing that way. And we'll see what pans out. But it'll be definitely a much different dynamic. And looking at how West Ham managed to do the business despite all the pressure in the second half, I really thought that game would yield more goals. I really expected City, after getting the one goal back, I really expected them to come on strong in the second half, and fair play to the Stammers and holding resolutely and defending well and coming away with all 3 points. And, it's been an interesting start to the season, and I think NBC Sports were talking about it today, how many away wins have occurred, and obviously they're saying that during our match, and Palace have been culpable of a couple of good away wins themselves, but West Ham have won at City, Arsenal, and Liverpool now, and it continues to be a very interesting start to the season. Yeah, you've got a couple of the usual suspects in both Manchester clubs occupying the top two spots, but when you've got West Ham and Leicester occupying the next two, it really makes for an interesting looking table at this point of the season.
Yeah, and speaking of that, with City, United, West Ham, and Leicester sitting between 12 and 15 points, they've assumed the top four positions after 6 games played. And then after that, Arsenal's on 10, Everton, Swansea, Palace, Spurs, Watford, all on 9, Norwich, West Brom, Liverpool on 8, and then Bournemouth and the bottom dwellers like Southampton and Chelsea down there with 7.
And Liverpool.
Well, they're on 8. Yeah. They're on 8. So again, it's early days. There's 32 matches to be played yet, but when you have the opportunities, it does my head in, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. When you think back, we played as well as we played today against Stoke, and we played as well as we played today at times against Leicester. And how many more points could we have right now? Say another 5. That puts us on 14, second in the table. If we capitalize and finish games, we've got to learn how to play 90 minutes plus.
Yeah.
When I was watching today, it was 25 minutes of absolute fury, and then they got their first really good chance at about the 25-minute mark, and I was like, here we go. 20 minutes or 25 minutes of controlling a game, and we're going to get nicked. How many times did that happen last year? And it's almost become like an MO for Tottenham, but it didn't happen. We kept controlling the play, so it makes me feel good as a supporter that the players are buying into what Pochettino is trying to do, and we're starting to finally reap some reward from that. Having a dynamic player be purchased, kudos to Levy and the board for going out and getting Son. He's made an immediate impact. He really has. And once we get Eriksen healthy, I think it will open up things so much in the final third that Kane will have to start scoring. It's going to open him up. He's not going to be bottlenecked with 2 or 3 defenders at all times, because those people are going to have to go out there and respect the other attackers and the creative options that are flying into the final third for us. I think the future looks really good. And when I say future, I'm talking the immediate future. The next 2 months or so are going to look really good, I think, on Poch's CV. I really think that the players are buying in.
You were just knocking on some wood, weren't you?
I was knocking on a little bit of wood.
You got a rabbit's foot round your neck?
And my fingers are crossed.
Okay, yeah. So, I think I've done this throughout the season so far, so I'll get my anorak on, and I always like to look at how we have done, not the first 6 games versus last year, but the corresponding fixtures. So, how did we do in Everton home last year and then this season? So, I believe Leicester and Everton, which were wins in those fixtures last season, well, obviously a lot of points dropped. We'd gained from Stoke, but the last 2 games, which have been wins last year, were both draws. So that's +4 in the points column. Now I believe if you look at those 6 games, we are 1 point better off than the corresponding 6 fixtures last season. So there's a plus as well. Having taken a bit of a nosedive, and you're right, we do need to figure out how to win some of these what should have been winnable games.
Yeah.
The Everton game, for example, and I think you could say Everton, Stoke, and Leicester, we should have come out better than we did in those games. Although Leicester, I'll give them that, we were poor in that game, but we, for the most of the Stoke game and all of the Everton game, we should definitely have had more points, and that would definitely have put us at least on the 13 points, and they're in the mix in the top 3. However, that's football. You're never going to win every game. You're always going to sit there and say, what if? There will be times when we've dodged a bullet, and you could argue that the Sunderland game or today, when you win 1-0, granted you always give yourself a chance when you keep a clean sheet, but 1-0 games, you can either batter someone senseless and curse your luck, like the Everton game, or you can just nick one on very few genuine efforts on goal. And let's be honest, we have not had a lot of genuine efforts on goal, and that for me is probably the concern. Ollie Wadhams was asking, what are you guys going to moan about today? Well, I'm going to moan about the fact that we're still not creating enough meaningful chances for all the possession, the pressing. There's just not enough quality efforts on goal, and that's the part that worries me, that I think could undo us against a side like City or even Swansea away. Swansea away should make us pretty nervous. We've won every game at the Liberty Stadium since Swansea's been promoted, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say we've done the double over them every season, but we've got a very good record against them. And, records are there to get broken at some point. So there's my moan. Unless we can just outshoot the opponent with shots on goal that are quality shots on goal, we need to be a little concerned. But if we're continuing the clean sheet process that we've done certainly in the last 3 Premier League games, and let's certainly not lose sight of that. 3 Premier League shutouts in a row. That's pretty impressive for us. When you look at last season.
Yeah.
So we still only conceded 4 goals in the league.
Yeah, and I think that's why, maybe even unfairly, and we kind of discussed that with Lyle Thomas about the comparisons between ABB and Pochettino. It's a totally different style of football. ABB still has a fan base out there that wish he would have never been sacked, and I'm telling you, if you just close your eyes and think about that brand of football and how badly I wanted to just put an ice pick into my eye sockets every time I would watch, everything was a pass back, everything was a pass sideways, and if we scored, it was almost miraculous. I hated that. I would rather watch what we're doing now and win 1-0 than do what we were doing, almost securely determining that we were not going to concede a goal and figure out if we can win 1-0. I didn't like that style of play at all. Another interesting stat, too, I believe it got mentioned on TV, and I don't know if I'm right or wrong, because I haven't double-checked this, and I usually don't like to say it if I didn't double-check it, but there was that Palace at White Hart Lane had not won in like 16 matches or something like that today, and that kind of surprised me, because they always play us tough, especially at Selhurst, obviously, but they said we had not lost to Palace since their promotion, for sure, but it had been like 16 straight matches in all competitions or something like that, but we had not suffered a defeat, and as soon as they said that, I worried.
Yeah, we've have an overall decent record against them, and certainly the home record speaks for itself, but there have been some times we've gone to Selhurst Park and just been atrocious, and they had the number on us last season. They took 4 points off us, but the season before that, when they did come up, we did do the double over them, and if you remember the home game then, that's when Punchin put his penalty up into NASA territory.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all had a good laugh about that. And every time I see his face, I remember that day. So, but let's move on. Move on. We need to talk a little bit about the Gooners.
Yeah.
They're coming off 2 consecutive defeats. I guess we should really talk about, well, obviously we all had a laugh at their expense in their Champions League tie at Zagreb. I always reserve those fits of laughter until we played our European tie, because any game in Europe can be a banana skin. And Karabag just was screaming out for that, and I'm sure a lot of fans were in disbelief when we were down 1-0 after 5 minutes. And I was just following it. I was in a meeting all day and was just following it on my phone, and I really expected us to batter them, but we'll take the 3 points and we'll take the 3 goals. But Arsenal, different ball of wax. I will kind of do a shameless plug here for episode 3 of the Cock and Ball Stories. I've just completed that blog. It'll be up on the website, and I'll put some links out.
Nice. And
it's really it focuses on our relationship, so to speak, with the South Londoners, and it's taken me a while to write it, but I wanted to get it out before the North London derby, and it's entitled A North London Obsession, Who's Obsessed with Who? So I'll leave it at that, but it should hopefully be out in the next couple of days, and I'll put the link up on Twitter and on our Facebook page. But
yeah, we'll definitely get that out there and get it shared. And I know our buddy Daniel Wynn, the television announcer for Tottenham, he will love that article, because I know he has a very big affinity against the Scum, and I think he would really be, because he knows his history about the rivalry as well.
Yeah,
that would be fun.
Yeah, I had to put a brief timeline in there to let people who may not know how much the dislike of the red and white half of London is concerned, and there's a nod to read more in the Heroes and Villains chapter of Julie Welsh's book, the biography of Tottenham Hotspur. And I kind of touched on it a little bit. I didn't go into it as much detail as she did, because it would have been downright plagiarism otherwise, and she'd have sued me. But it does kind of parallel their history and our history, and it talks about first and who did what. And I enjoyed writing it. Hopefully you'll enjoy reading it. And it's certainly not a definitive well, we're obsessed with them because of what they've done, but it's probing that question. But